taken my little month off, and something that I really wanted to do was spend some time going lives when I felt like I had the mental energy to do that. And today's a day that I really do feel like I'm ready to do this. And I love being live. I love answering questions. I love engaging with my community. So thank you for being here. I'm going to do some kind of rapid fire Q&A as questions come in. I wanted to also just kind of chat about how like the last couple of years have been, it's just been a whirlwind. Like I've moved countries, I've left my marriage. It's been almost 3 years since that happened. I'm still like in and out of court, and the last couple of weeks have been really busy and full with that side of things. And there's only so much I can really share online and on social media, and that's really hard for me because I've always shown up and been my true authentic self. So not being able to, sometimes I feel like I'm being a little bit censored in what I can share in terms of what it was like to leave the type of marriage that I was in, and what it's like co-parenting, or it's not really co-parenting, it's more parallel parenting. And I try to continue to be really consistent in sharing about how I show up for my kids and how I help my clients show up for their kids, and how to help you have better meal times. So it's really nice to be live because I think it's been like 2 weeks since I have been live. And something that I wanted to talk about today, because one of my videos that seems to be going like still a little bit viral on Instagram in particular, was about mealtime schedules and how you're not creating food trauma by telling your child that they can't eat at a certain time. And there's always two really interesting camps here. The people that are like, oh my gosh, schedules are so important. And then the other camp that is, you're giving your child food trauma. How dare you? Like, this is time is a construct. We shouldn't be telling children that they can't eat at certain times and blah, blah, blah. But look, the research supports having a meal and snack time schedule for children. And if you think about it, like, yes, school is a construct, work is a construct, everything is a construct, but we live and work within this construct. So when your child goes to school, they have set times for getting up and having a break and going to the toilet, usually, having their lunches and snacks and things like that. They can't just sit and graze all day, because grazing all day is really it can promote mindless eating, where your child is just never developing an appetite throughout the day because they're just constantly knocking back their appetite with snacks. It's also not good for their teeth. But the other thing is, if your child hasn't had the ability to properly feel hungry and properly satisfy their hunger, they don't really know what that feels like. And that is an important thing to realize, like, hey, I'm hungry. It's time to have like lunch or a snack. And that's not to say that your child should only be having 3 meals in the day. Your child should still be having snacks in the day. Usually it's 3 meals, 2 snacks. That depends on your child's wake and sleep schedule, depends on your child's age. If your child goes to bed at 9 p.m. and you have dinner at 6 o'clock, they might need a snack before bed. So it might be 3 meals, 3 snacks. It's not to say that they should only be eating 3 square meals a day, because that's not accurate. But where it's really important to have this meal and snack time schedule is allowing your child to build an appetite and know what it feels like to satisfy that appetite. If they're just constantly knocking back their hunger by eating snacks, that's not helping them in the long term. And the other thing too is that what we in Western society think of as snacks are like junk snacks. I say that to you. I'd prefer that you don't use that terminology with your children, but snacks tend to be low nutritional value, highly palatable, just not generally things that support health for kids. So when I'm talking about snacks, this is kind of multifaceted, where if this is new to you, welcome. I've got a lot of videos on my pages pinned in highlights. If you're on Instagram or if you're on TikTok, in my playlists about snacks, about mini meal mindset snacks, which is where you incorporate at least 3 food groups. And ideally you want to promote a high iron food at every meal or snack opportunity, because iron deficiency anemia is the most common deficiency amongst children. And every food that contains iron also contains protein, but not every protein food contains iron. That's not to say that every high iron food is an excellent source of protein, because it's not. Spinach is an example. There is a small amount of protein in spinach, but it's not what I would consider a good source. However, children tend to be low in iron. They have high needs for iron because of their rapid growth. So placing a high iron food at every meal and snack opportunity is very important for them for that reason. Now, if I'm new to you, welcome. I have a online course called Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, that if you're just sort of getting started on your picky eater journey and it's not super duper like all encompassing at the moment, this is also the most affordable place to start. Mealtimes Without Meltdowns is linked in my bio. And it's helped thousands of parents all across the world better communicate around food and meal times with their children, and also helps you shift your mindset as to what is a win where it comes to picky eating, how to help your child how to help your child with different tools in terms of picky eating and help them become more confident and comfortable with different foods. There are also a lot of guides in there to help you with your language, your phrasing. There's meal and snack time guides. There's the ultimate mini meal mindset snack guide to help you not always give the same snack and to keep plenty of variety. There are iron food lists, vitamin C food lists, high energy lists, all kinds of things in there. So that's linked in my bio, and it's called Mealtimes Without Meltdowns. So I had to send questions because I'm going to be live for a little bit, and I answer some questions. I've got my boys to try ramen for the first time. I couldn't believe it. It's such a big win for me. Okay, Ali, what did you do to facilitate that? And also, how old are your kids? If you do send a question, please, it's helpful if you can let me know a little bit of context, like what are some of the things you've tried, and also how old your children are. Laura asks about arfid. What I recommend for arfid is finding someone like myself who is trained to help children with arfid. And usually it's a multidisciplinary team. It depends where in the world you live. Generally speaking, you need a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and a dietitian, and there may be other professionals as well that are helping you with this, because arfid is a diagnosed eating disorder. So it does require psych involvement as well. I work with other children who have arfid, some who have been diagnosed formally, and some who I'm not able to diagnose, but they definitely fit to me. They fit the criteria of a child that has arfid. So you can send me a private message and we can chat more about that. If you do send me a private message, let me know if your child has been diagnosed with it or if it's something you suspect they have. Tell me a little bit about what you've tried, and are you working with any other professionals? Because sometimes the parents that I work with, depending where they are in the world, they haven't been properly referred to the resources and professionals that they need. So sometimes I am working with a family whose child has ARFID, and I'm the only support. That's not ideal. It is better than nothing. Sometimes families are on really long wait lists to get help with a psychologist. But this is something that I have additional training and professional development in. So you can always send me a private message about that. I have a 9-month corrected age preemie. I cannot get him to eat solids. He has tried a couple of things, but he would not take anything solid. So my question back to you. So I'm working with a mum right now who's also got a child who's premature, a few months premature. And her corrected age is 18 months now. And she was having some struggles with the child. She's eating, but she was drinking a lot of milk. So we've decreased the amount of milk, and we've ramped up the amount of food that she's eating. We've also set up a proper schedule for her, because it's kind of at this time, you're around 9 months corrected. It's probably around the 10 to 12 months that you want to get a reasonably solid schedule set up and put in place. What I would ask you, if we were having a chat on the phone on a discovery call about what was going on, I would ask you, how is your child reacting to the food? Are they clamping their mouth shut? Are they pushing a spoon away? Are they playing around with the food themselves and just not eating it? Like, what is that like? So that's a question that I have for you, a few questions that I have for you. So feel free to send through your answers, and I'll see if I can give you some more pointers. All right, Laura, beautiful. Yeah, send me that message. My son is 5. When I get him to eat food he doesn't like, he will cough and gag, sometimes even throw up. Yep, that's really not a surprise, Carly, because when we pressure a child to eat something that they don't want in their mouth or put something in their mouth that they don't want there, it's a very unpleasant experience for them. So I would encourage you to change the way you are approaching meal times with your child and not ask him to eat food that he doesn't want to eat. And it's all about, so the way when I work with clients, including in my small coaching groups, we need to decrease the pressure. Try getting your child to eat something, making them eat something against their will is pressuring them and is going to almost always cause a negative experience, which is going to make the child less likely to want to do it again. And it's going to make them less likely to enjoy the food that they are experiencing. Even if it's a really delicious food, if you've been forced to do something, put something in your mouth, you are probably not going to enjoy that experience either. So forcing and coercing or highly encouraging, like what, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, but the response you're getting from your child is that it's a very unpleasant experience. And that's unfortunately not going to help your child feel confident and comfortable around that food. And what we need to do is help your child feel confident and comfortable around that food. So depending on how long your child's been, really picky and how long you've been struggling with this, is you can send me a private message and we can chat in more detail. You may be a really good fit for my next small group. The next one starts in January. And at the moment, I've got an early bird special where you save 15%. You get access to both my online courses, and I'm also doing a bonus call in December because I know January is a couple of months away. And I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So you'll have a lot of things, a lot of places to start. If you were to join today, you'd have access to several different tools to get started on. What do you think leads to picky eating? My 4 and 2-year-old are both very picky eaters. There is a part of it that is genetic, which is unfortunate. But that being said, just like heart disease or type 2 diabetes can be genetic, you can have a predisposition to it, a genetic predisposition to it. That doesn't mean you're going to have that problem. It means that you need to manage your risk factors in a smart way. So with heart disease or diabetes, it means that ideally you are eating a lot of fibrous foods. It means that you're not eating too many foods that are really high in saturated fat. It means that you're exercising and you're active ideally every day. And in the same way, your child may be genetically predisposed to being a more selective eater. There are so many tools that you can put into place to help prevent it from getting to a point where it's really bad and unmanageable, and also making improvements, because I have worked with some very tricky cases, and improvements do happen with the right tools in place. So feel free again to send me a private message and we can have a chat to see if the small coaching group or one-on-one coaching is a better fit. I am taking new clients at the moment for one-on-one, and I also have openings in my small coaching group that starts next year. So feel free to reach out and send me a DM about that. Alyssa, my 3-year-old loves his fruit and veg, but has a sugar addiction. Any tips on breaking it? Halloween wrecked us. Okay, first off, please try to reframe what you're saying is a sugar addiction, because that is highly contentious in the literature at the moment, that sugar addiction is not actually a thing. Because if sugar addiction was a thing, in the same way that like a cocaine addiction is a thing, people are not going and eating 300 bananas because they need sugar, and they're not going and eating bags of sugar from their pantry and packages of sugar at the coffee shops. So it's not an addiction to sugar by any means. It's not an addiction to an ingredient. And I don't even think it's right to call it an addiction at all. It's a fixation, or it's an obsession, if you will, about the taste of a certain food. So, and that has to do with, I really enjoy eating, for example, peanut butter M&Ms or peanut M&Ms or whatever it might be. That lights up pleasure centers in your brain. And it's not necessarily the sugar that's doing that. It's the actual experience of eating that food as a whole that is causing that. So I do have a specific course called Stress-Free Sweets and Eats that goes through more detail, particularly around Halloween and how to help children develop a healthy relationship with food. But a lot of that actually has to do with you as the parent and how you speak about food and sugar. And I would encourage you, if there's one tip you take away from this live, is don't even use the word sugar. Don't even say like, oh, you're addicted to sugar, or, you know, this, that you've had too much sugar, or you've had this or that. Like, just don't use that word. don't draw attention to it. Your children will hear it from pretty much everybody in their lives. They don't need to hear it from you as well. And instead you can just say something like, you know, for example, if it's Halloween chocolates or whatever, yeah, pick a couple to have with dinner and serve them with the meal. But like I said, I do have the whole framework of how I would suggest you work on sweets, obsessions, or fixations in my Stress-Free Sweets and Eats course. And the link to that is in my bio. Okay, so the mum who asked about her 9-month-old corrected, I can answer quickly. He is food motivated. He loves blended food in his bottle and his bottles. If I try to feed him something that has texture, he gags. Spit it out, and when I try to feed him another spoon, he closes his mouth and faces away. He loves food but not textures. So that signals to me that it's really important that he needs a chance to practice with different textures, and that may be starting off with touching them with his hands and allowing him to decide when he's ready to put it in his mouth, depending, because he's 9 months. He's not ready to have solids be his primary source of food yet. That doesn't happen until closer to 12 months old. And that's when you start to have the switch of milk being the primary source of nutrition, and then that swapping to food being the primary source of nutrition. So he's a bit early to be necessarily decreasing his milk, but I would be doing a lot of exposures with different textures for him to explore and play around with. Because if he only is used to purees, imagine if you'd only ever eaten pureed carrots, and then one day someone gives you like a piece of carrot, you'd be like, well, what the fuck is this? It's hard, and it's got it doesn't look like a puree. It doesn't feel like a puree. The texture of it in your mouth is completely different. Like, you need time to practice that. And that's what this time is for. So I hope that's helpful. Interesting. He would not eat his hands. And he plays a little bit with the food, but he would not put it in his mouth and his hands. So this is where eating together can be really helpful as well. If you're not eating with your child, this goes from when they're a baby to all the way up to when they're, teenagers and beyond, that sitting and eating together is really important, because you get to model, oh, this is what I do with my food. I put it in my mouth and I eat it. I chew it. I drink it if it's like a beverage or something. So the modeling is really important as well, especially for children of that age, because if he sees you eating it, oh, that's how we do it. And that exposure over time is really important. I have a 3-year-old and a 20-month-old, both of them not wanting to eat meat. Okay, so those preferences can happen pretty early. 20 months old is around the time we expect to see some pushback in terms of quote unquote pickiness, because that's when children start to develop more autonomy and learn how to say no to things. So with meat can be based on a textural issue as well, in that meat requires a lot of chewing. So just a really quick recommendation or suggestion that I have for you is, and I don't know if you've already done this or not, I'm guessing you possibly have, but I'm going to say it anyway, is making sure that you are giving a variety of different kinds of meats. So, chicken thigh, chicken legs, chicken breasts, because all of those parts of the chicken have different textures, and as well as beef, or if you're in Australia, kangaroo is a good example. So different kinds of meat, but also presented in different ways where the texture is different. So shredded, minced, or ground, cut into chunks, cooked like in a steak, cooked in a stew. So where the textures are completely different, and having them really moist with a sauce or some sort of like a stew where there is a sauce can be really helpful too, because that makes it moist. It makes it easier to manage. If you think about the last time you ate a piece of steak, how many times do you think you had to chew that piece of steak in order to be able to swallow it? I can give you an answer. If you're somebody who chews your food very thoroughly, because I've done this with my own children, chewing a piece of steak can be 50 times. That's a lot of chewing. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of chewing before you can swallow it. So some kids are just like, that's too much work for me. So that's where I encourage you to try different types of meat and in different formats, different preparation techniques. My 1-year-old will only eat one thing from his plate and then ask for more when it's gone, ignoring the rest. How do I support him and prevent him becoming a picky eater? That's a really good question. So you said he's 1 years old. So I'm curious, is he 12? Is he closer to 12 months or 24 months? Because honestly, that second year of life, there's a big difference between a 12-month-old and a 24-month-old. So it's okay to give them a refill of something that they've eaten. I wouldn't be rushing to do that. And, oh my goodness, you finished your rice, I must get you more rice. We don't necessarily want to do that. You also don't want to say you can't have any more rice. So it's kind of, and I talk about these nuances more specifically, obviously, when we do coaching together, because it is child dependent, it's family dependent. It can be dependent on how much rice you've made or who else is at the table and that kind of thing. So giving seconds is okay. I wouldn't be giving 10 serves of the same thing. So if they're only eating rice, just letting them only eat rice and fill up completely on that. There is a sweet spot, and it is quite nuanced, and it does depend on your child and their other preferences, how many other foods they're eating, because it also comes down to what you're serving at that meal. So if you're serving a meal where you've only given them one reliable food and everything else is something that is new or uncomfortable for them, they're obviously going to only gravitate towards the familiar food, which isn't setting them up to be super successful. So that's sort of a nuanced situation. Okay, so 14 months old, which means that's really good. You're getting on top of it early. So what I just suggested is the best place to start. If you are concerned about that, honestly, having the tools in place at this age when they're really young, like 12 to 14 months old, is really important. And that's where I really would suggest the Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course. That is my course that is linked in my bio. It's the most affordable way to get started. It'll help you with tailoring your language and communication skills to help prevent the picky eating getting any worse and preferences. And it'll also help you as the parent feel really confident of knowing, like, no, I'm not just giving you 10 serves of rice. So I'd encourage you to look into that course so that you can start implementing, because a lot of these changes are not like earth-shattering, crazy, difficult things to do. They're things that you can incorporate into your life and meal times right away. They're very practical because they have to help thousands of parents, the parents who have taken them. You need to be able to integrate them into your life, and that's really important. All right, 3-year-old only grazes. Try to offer things he likes, and he'll only eat those, typically fruit. So with the grazing, I suppose my question is, okay, 3 years old, what is stopping you from doing a meal and snack schedule? This is what I started talking about earlier in the live, where we were talking about why a meal and snack schedule is so important. So I suppose that's my question, is what's preventing you from putting a meal and snack schedule in place? And that may be a question that you need to kind of have a little think about, because it's hard when your child is, and they're a baby and you feed them on demand. And then as they become a toddler, they start to have more ability to say no to things. And we as parents can really get stuck in that, oh, at what point do I put my foot down and have this structure versus, oh, they were a baby and they just need food all the time. That can be really challenging. And that's where putting that schedule in place early is really important. 3 meals and usually 2 snack times, but still limited on what he eats. Okay, so you do have a schedule in place. I don't know if it's a theoretical schedule, if you're sticking to it. Ideally, you want to have it at predictable times, so that they have the security of knowing, oh, I know I eat, not necessarily that they know I eat at 12 o'clock, because a 2-year-old or 3-year-old doesn't know that, but it's predictable every day. I eat around this time, or I eat after this activity. They need that level of predictability. And it's really good for us too as the parents, because you don't want to be the parent who's like, oh, I need to make 300 snacks a day. Like, that's not sustainable and it's not enjoyable. You don't need to be doing that. So I would check in and make sure that you are giving those on a consistent basis. And if you're only giving him food that he eats, depending where you're starting, okay? And this is where, like, when we work together, I've got a pretty detailed intake form, which is includes like what are the typical foods that your child eats, how much variety do they have? Because if I'm working with a child or a family whose child only eats 10 things, the way I would approach a child who's mostly only eating their reliable foods at a snack time is very different than how I would approach this for a family who has, say, 30 reliable foods for their child, because you have more wiggle room in what you can give them and more variety in what you can give them. So it depends on where you're starting in that space. Are you starting with 10 foods? Are you starting with 30 foods? Are you starting with 40 foods? Even 40 foods, if you really think about it, is quite narrow. So 20 foods is less than 20 foods is what's considered to be like a major red flag. But if you're even close to that, take stock. It's not good to be close to that. You don't say, I've got 21 foods, I'm okay. Like, it's not. That's really limited, and it's very hard for children to get all the nutrients that they need from such a limited amount of foods. The other question to ask yourself is, how are they eating a lot of variety from within each food group? So we want variety from all the food groups. If your child is not eating any vegetables, that's an entire food group being excluded. Let's say your child eats cucumbers, but that's the only vegetable they eat. Okay, they're eating something from the vegetable category, but it's not a variety of vegetables. It's one vegetable or maybe two vegetables. So those are the two questions that I really like to ask together. How many foods is your child eating, and are they eating variety from every food group? And when it's a no, that's a problem that we would want to address. All right, I'm at my time limit, so I've got to go and respond to client messages and send some emails. If this brought up more questions for you and you're interested in coaching and getting things back on track, my next small coaching group starts in January next year. I do have an early bird special at the moment where you save 15%. You also get access to, there's stuff on the client portal in a module so that you have somewhere to start now, and you also get access to my online courses so you have somewhere to start now. There's also a bonus call next month, again, so that you have somewhere to start and you don't have to wait all the way till January. So if you have questions about the group, shoot me a DM. Let me know you came from the live. Hey, I'm interested in the group. Tell me a little bit about your child. What are your top 3 problems? And how old is your child? And that'll give me a good idea, because I want to make sure that you're the right fit for the group. If your child is a really complex case, you would probably be better with one-on-one coaching, which I am opening some spaces for. So if that's something that you're interested in, when you message me, just let me know, hey, I'm more interested in one-on-one coaching, or I'm interested in the group. Let's chat about that. So thanks for being here, and I will talk to you soon. And like I said, send me a DM if you have any questions. All right, have a good day. Bye.